Luca was just an orphan from the scrapyard city, but he craved power immensely. Even as a child, he could take on a whole gang of bullies by himself, who dared to steal his food. At 15, he easily passed the entrance exam, becoming the Academy's youngest genius rookie. He was given the most advanced suit of armor. This place specialized in training children to become killing machines in service of the Empire. The story is set 200 years after. Earth was ravaged by human wars, forcing them to find a new home on the planet Novice. To survive and effectively exploit its resources, humans established the mechanized Acratian Empire. This was the only way to compete with the two powerful races, the original inhabitants of this place. Deep within the heart of the Empire was the rookie training facility, which was incredibly harsh. Luca was facing off against death row inmates, who were armed to the teeth. Without hesitation, he charged straight at them, immediately finishing off the biggest one. Then, using the hail of bullets, they fired at him. Luca skillfully swung his sword, deflecting the trajectory of every bullet, sending them back into their heads and dispatching them all. The moment of danger passed, leaving Luca standing firm amidst the smoke and dust. But no one knew that inside the armor, his face was pale. His nose was bleeding from overusing his senses at such high intensity. He told himself this sacrifice was necessary to increase his own value. Sure enough, the company commander outside greeted Luca with a satisfied smile, praising him for being able to control the bullets. Without any instruction, Luca showed no sign of arrogance, but calmly explained, "I was just mimicking the skills of the previous candidate." He knew that person was a noble, who had been taught the curriculum in advance. While he was just an orphan. "I like you, so I want to give you a gift." With that, he pressed down on the table, and a mechanical arm shot towards Luca's left eye. Witnessing this horrific act, all the cadets were terrified. In contrast, Luca remained calm as the man took out one of his eyeballs, and then offered to give him a robotic eye, capable of predicting trajectories. Returning to his bunk to rest, his roommate next to him came over to check on him enthusiastically. He introduced himself as Ella Yarkin, saying he greatly admired Luca's performance in the last test. With just a glance, Luca could tell he was the son of a noble family, a wealthy one, yet he showed no signs of prejudice against the lower class and was friendly, offering Luca a supplement pill. He said it would help him recover well for tomorrow's test. Faced with such enthusiastic persuasion, Luca reluctantly accepted. Indeed, it was completely different from the pills he used to buy at the market. After swallowing the pill, Luca turned and confessed that Ellie was also a very skilled warrior. His bullet control skill was copied from him. Hearing this, Ellie tapped his mechanical eyes and explained they could calculate bullet trajectories, but Luca used only pure instinct, which was truly impressive. After saying that, Ellie looked down, annoyed at the noble class. Some of them have no talent at all, but they can pass the selection round just by throwing money around easily. Luca couldn't believe he was hearing a noble speak ill of his own class. He even wanted to befriend him, citing admiration for his talent as the reason. However, Luca didn't hesitate to shake his hand, because in his heart there was nothing else but loyalty to the Empire. He had to gain an advantage for his side by any means necessary, no matter how tyrannical it was. Not a day went by that Luca skipped his shooting practice. Aiming straight at the mannequin in front of him, Luca tested the new robotic eye he'd just received. As expected, after the deafening gunshots, all the bullets landed perfectly on the mannequin's head with incredible precision. Beside him, Ellie couldn't help but be amazed that Luca had adapted to the new eye so quickly. At the same time, he showed a hint of jealousy, as he was a specialist in close-quarters combat. However, right after, he looked down at himself and asserted that if he still had his status and power, even someone talentless would still be considered a genius. Immediately, Luca retorted with a cold face, saying that if more people like him appeared, then people would start paying attention to those with real strength. Furthermore, what you just said could be considered an insult to the Empire system, even for a noble. If it's reported to the higher-ups, you won't be able to escape disciplinary action. Hearing this, Ellie just smiled and turned away. If you really intended to do that, you wouldn't have said it out loud. "I know you're a good person, Luca." He didn't pay it any more mind, and continued to load his gun for the next exercise. The very next day, the company commander led the group of assassins on a major mission. He appointed Luca and Ellie as team leaders for their outstanding performance in the past few days. If no one objects, I will brief you on the mission. On the other side of the canyon, there is an outpost where Feka Prize has illegally stationed troops in our territory. Infiltrate it and take back what was lost. No need for prisoners. Just wipe them all out. This was Ellie looking towards the base, feeling a little worried, as this was the team's first live combat mission, although they were used to slaughtering enemies in previous training courses. Facing an outside force now would be completely different. They were all powerful aliens, completely unlike the weak prisoners. Luca turned to him and reassured him, advising him not to let emotions take over. What's worse, those high-ranking guards behind us are not here to protect us. They're here to supervise. They might even take our lives if we dare to show mercy to the enemy on this planet. To the Empire, other forces are just flies. We've learned one thing, that everyone here uses and deceives the Empire for their own gain. Ellie completely understood what he was saying, so he used his robotic eye to look deep into the enemy base. Their mother and child were playing happily. The massacre officially began. In just a few minutes, the place was engulfed in smoke and fire, while his teammates behind him continued the hunt, shooting down the remaining enemies. Luca, for his part, realized they had no weapons at all. It seemed this training mission would end well. Checking one last tent, Luca suddenly heard crying. It was coming from a terrified little boy, his body trembling as he cried for his mother, remembering the company commander's warning not to show mercy to anyone. Luca didn't hesitate to lunge forward with his sword for the kill. However, he swung just close enough to the boy's face, intending to fool the system. He then moved close and whispered, "Lie down and pretend to be dead. You might survive." Luca had barely turned away when a shot flew straight towards the boy, creating a huge explosion. It came from the gun of a teammate positioned up high. He had witnessed Luca's entire mistake. Unexpectedly, it was Ellie. He reassured Luca that he wouldn't report it to the commander and reminded Luca to be more careful. But even he didn't expect that right behind him, a light from an approaching enemy appeared. An explosion erupted right after, startling Luca below, who feared for him, while he was worried about his teammate. The culprit had already closed in on him. It was a mage. The old man immediately cast a spell, about to unleash a fireball to finish him off. Luckily, his cooldown wasn't over yet. Otherwise, he would have been a goner. Only then did Luca realize the man didn't need firearms, so he must belong to the rival alliance. Up above, Ellie was still alive, diving down to strike back at the old mage. Unexpectedly, the man sensed him and launched a preemptive strike, blowing him up in midair and sending him crashing to the ground. Then the man clutched his chest and yelled, explaining this wasn't a military camp, but a residential area. The people you just attacked were just ordinary civilians. Meanwhile, Luca was only worried about his teammate's safety. Ellie, who had just been hit by the old man's spell, he nimbly dodged each shot and charged straight for the mage. Even with the energy orb right in his face, he remained utterly determined, pushing himself to be even faster before his speed boost wore off. Indeed, Luca managed to cut through the explosion and appeared right in front of the old man. Having no other choice, the mage had to retreat to keep a safe distance. Behind him, Ellie, with his severed limbs, apologized for underestimating the opponent, but Luca reassured him, saying he would use all his strength to get revenge and atone for his mistake. He ordered the other teammates to continue the mission of sweeping the area while he handled the old man himself. He calmly analyzed the old man. Each time the mage cast a spell, he needs a certain amount of time to form hand seals, and after each cast, it takes a moment to recover energy. After a series of feints, waiting for an opening, the time to act had come. Luca immediately gripped his sword and charged in to finish off his opponent. Unexpectedly, the man could still release energy from his left hand, smashing it straight into Luca's head. The impact was so powerful that it shattered his helmet, revealing his young, startled face. Luckily, he was still conscious enough to deliver a final sword strike, sending the old mage to his ancestors. Before falling, the old man mumbled, "You're just a child." Luca stood over his victory with mixed emotions. Clearly, in that last moment, he could have been finished off first. So why didn't the man continue his attack? However, Luca immediately tried to steady his thoughts. The symbol of the Akratian Empire appeared in his mind, reminding him not to let emotions overwhelm his will. Those who threaten the safety of the emperor and his people must be judged. Meanwhile, the sounds of cries for help and children weeping were heard, clearly by Luca's own ears. Back in the recovery room, filled with modern machinery, Luca was soaking his body in a medicinal solution, but his mind couldn't stop thinking about the recent mission. In stark contrast, Ellie beside him laughed and asked, "That near-death feeling was pretty interesting, huh? This time I got new arms and legs. What about you?" "My back was damaged, so I replaced it with a titanium spine and synthetic skin. Anyway, in just a few years, I'll be getting a completely new body anyway. So I'm thinking of doing it a bit earlier." Pausing for a moment, Ellie guessed. The higher-ups must have known about the psionics' presence, but didn't offer any assistance. However, even though we were attacked directly, we both survived. It's too strange to be just a coincidence. Luca guessed that perhaps the psionic had no intention of killing them from the start. Remembering the man's pained expression, when he realized Luca was just a child, he bitterly asserted that letting him live was the man's mistake. That pity is exactly why the Corn people will continue to die out and wither away. Ellie's question from beside him pulled him back to reality. "Why didn't you kill that child?" Luca, slightly irritated, advised Ellie not to ask too many questions. "Did you get a new tongue installed too?" Then he turned his face away, muttering to himself that it was a mistake he would never let happen again. Today, before the training session, the squad welcomed a visiting general. Because of Luca and Ellie's excellent performance, he expected the two of them to strive for the position of captain in the future. Regarding the Royal Guard structure, there are 100 guards in total, divided into 10 small squads. The company commander is in charge of them all, while each squad has its own captain. Luca believed that if he were made captain of the weakest squad, Squad 10, he could certainly make it truly strong. The training session began with rumbling sounds from the practice field. Luca and Ellie were locked in a tense battle. He sensed that after getting new arms and legs, Ellie had gained incredible speed, but he still couldn't win without skill. Luca swept his standing leg, then finished with a powerful punch right near his face, stopping abruptly. "Same as always. That's 124 wins for me." After the training session, the two sat on a rooftop, gazing at the galaxy. Ellie seemed regretful, thinking he would win that last match. Luca advised him to train his skills more diligently instead of focusing on new parts. If just getting replacements made you stronger, what would be the point of training? Ellie was very curious. "With your position, Luca, your background is no longer a concern. Why don't you relax a little?" But for someone like Ellie, who had a home to return to, how could he understand that for Luca, stopping would be the end of the line? Then Luca turned and asked, "Why is it that you're so talented, Ellie, but you lack motivation? Why do you want to be a guard?" Looking up at the sky, he spoke of his dream, which was to study the mysterious ancient civilizations. But this was taboo in the Empire. Besides, with my family's tradition of high-ranking commanders, they would never allow it. Hearing this, Luca thought that Ellie trusted him too much, revealing such deep secrets. If this were reported, Ellie would certainly not get away unscathed. Luca reaffirmed once more, "I am completely loyal to the Empire, because the Emperor and the Empire discovered my talent. Any enemy of the Empire, I am ready to destroy completely. Even you are no exception." Ellie's only response was a smirk. Ellie jumped down, asserting that it was just a lie. "If your obedience went beyond simple loyalty, you wouldn't have let me live until now. You shouldn't try so hard." Today, Luca's squad began scouting the neutral zone, an uninhabited area. This is a forest, touching the million-year-old landmark. Eli couldn't help but feel excited, as he was about to explore the ancient civilization here. Meanwhile, Luca, feeling angry at his recklessness, warned him, saying they might run into another dangerous force in this place. Suddenly, a member of the team stepped up to defend Eli. It was Cloud Ramos, with his silver-white hair. He said that learning about historical traces was a good thing. It could provide data to help predict the future. Then he suddenly turned and asked if Luca was dating anyone. Luca immediately went on the defensive, saying he was straight. "Don't get any ideas. It turned out the kid just admired Luca's talent so much that he wanted to introduce him to his younger sister, who was said to be very beautiful. Plus, she was a young lady from a wealthy family. Before Luca could refuse, he sensed something was wrong. His sensor indicated that an outsider was nearby. They all began to form a battle formation, while Luca and Eli stayed back to observe. Sure enough, in the distance, a stranger was standing before a strange, glowing stone. Looking closer, it was a knight from Favorite, fully and professionally equipped with a helmet and armor. A glint of light reflected off his visor, allowing him to spot their approach. Almost instantly, he threw his spear, which emitted a magical aura, straight towards Luca's team. The two were completely taken by surprise. Just as they shouted a warning to run, the spear had already zipped past them, faster than lightning, and hit one of the men, sending blood splattering everywhere. Luca's eyes widened in horror when he realized it was Cloud Ramos. He hadn't been able to dodge this enemy. This was truly a completely different level. The magic spear finally stopped at a landmark on the opposite side. The knight just used a bit of magic in his palm and instantly retrieved his weapon with swift ease. On Luca's side, he was still in shock, looking at his teammate trembling on the ground. Just a moment ago, he was joking about wanting to introduce Luca to his sister. Unbelievably, the moment the spear flashed, it had taken his upper body. Even more terrifying, Luca's mechanical eyes were flashing red, signaling an error. Luca was trying to calculate the spear's trajectory, but got no results at all. He didn't even notice that the knight was charging another magic attack. Just then, a volley of bullets flew towards him, forcing the knight to use his shield to block. It was his teammates behind him providing covering fire, which helped Luca refocus and rejoin the battle formation. Sweat was pouring down his face. He told himself they couldn't escape from here. The only way was to try and hold them off and wait for the guards to arrive as reinforcements. The countdown for the team's survival began. On the other side, the knight threw a spear again. In an instant, it dove down from the air with a trajectory that was too bizarre. Luckily, Luca managed to shift slightly, avoiding a fatal blow. However, it was still close enough to graze his face and shear off a lock of his hair. He wasn't out of danger yet. The spear immediately flew back towards its master. This time, Luca was losing his balance and falling, making it difficult to dodge in this situation. Suddenly, an image of his company commander appeared, in his mind berating Luca for being too weak, like a fish on a chopping block. Only focusing on dodging without attacking was no different from being a coward. The guard force has no need for people like that. Luca snapped out of it. Instinctively, he pivoted and swung his sword with all his might. Sure enough, he managed to block the other guy's spear, knocking it off course and sending it flying far away. However, after that blow, his sword broke in two. His hand went numb, but luckily he kept his life. 6 seconds had passed since calling for reinforcements. The knight had closed in for close quarters combat with the team, with just a few basic slashes. He shredded them all. It was unreal. Luca was completely surprised that the knight had ignored him to wipe out the entire force behind him. But it seemed the warrior wanted to save the best for last, as he finally turned for a direct confrontation with him. In this life or death situation, Luca activated max power in his mechanical boots and charged straight at his opponent, ready for a final, desperate move. Both were focused on their final blow, not noticing an object approaching at an unbelievable speed. It used its giant hand to crush the warrior's head. Much to Luca's astonishment, it was a giant robot. It slammed its opponent to the ground with immense force, then dragged him a long distance across the ground. Finally, it ended with a powerful throw, sending the warrior crashing into the landmark ahead, causing a horrific explosion. The smoke and dust gradually cleared, revealing the massive armor of the robot. The reinforcement had arrived just in time to help Luca. He screamed with joy, thinking he was about to die. On the other side, the warrior wasn't dead yet. In a flash, his energy was restored, and he only had a crack on his helmet. Immediately, the two sides engaged in another fierce battle. On one side was a royal guard equipped with the Empire's weapons. On the other was a holy knight of Corin, who possessed seemingly equal power. They continuously teleported and clashed in mid-air, creating countless terrifying explosions. Luca tried to focus, but it was very difficult to keep up. After a while of fighting, the royal guard finally managed to grab the head and restrain the warrior, but he refused to die. secretly channeling magic through his trembling fingers. Right behind Luca, the spear began to glow again. It moved slightly. He realized the knight hadn't used the spear in a while. If it joined the fight with the knight, it would be a huge obstacle for the guard. Sure enough, the magic spear flew up on its own, aiming straight for its target. Seeing this, Luca, without hesitation, used all his strength to kick it off its flight path. Thanks to that, the spear missed its target, grazing past the guard's helmet, startling him a little. Seizing the opportunity, the Holy Knight unleashed a full power kick at his opponent. On this side, the guard also retaliated with a similar punch, pinning him firmly to the ground. The attack created a massive explosion, destroying everything around in a huge radius. Luca was also thrown hundreds of meters away and was now panting, trying to regain his composure. He didn't know the outcome. If the guard was dead, he wouldn't be able to survive either. But footsteps were approaching. Was it friend or foe? In that tense moment, a voice spoke up. "Good work, rookie." It was the royal guard. He offered a hand to help Luca up so they could return to base together. You could say that the full-body mechanical armor that the Empire bestowed upon its royal guard was invincible by removing and optimizing every component and using the most precious materials on the planet. This ultimate weapon was now right before his eyes, but its head was gone. Luca was stunned and instinctively asked if it was a machine or a person. Only then did the robotic guard raise its hands, flailing in helpless panic. Then it let out a sound that seemed to come from deep within, full of agony. Witnessing this, Luca couldn't help but tremble. Have I always been striving to become a monster like this? He wondered. Just then, the white boots of a knight approached. It was Eli. He was still alive, having temporarily attached parts from the enemy to be able to move. All their teammates had died. Now, with only the two of them left, returning to the Empire no longer had any meaning. Luca felt his body was too badly damaged, beyond saving. He advised Eli to give up everything and pursue his dream, because he shone brightest when he talked about it. Watching his back, as he walked away, Luca silently hoped everything would work out. As for himself, he could only close his eyes and wait for heaven. Suddenly, a hand appeared, cleaning Luca's wounds. He was still here. He had only gone to find whatever he could to save his friend. "There's no way. I could feel at peace leaving you here to die." In the treatment room, Luca had his parts replaced, but was still diligently studying a book. Eli came up from behind to check on him, realizing he was researching new parts, and recommended that he choose the model F-24, as it would be a great fit. This was the only time in a long while that the two could relax, because right after returning to the Empire and completing their treatment, they were summoned to many departments for interrogation, investigating the encounter with the Holy Knight of Corinth that led to heavy losses for their forces. But Luca knew what they really wanted. It was the fight for ownership of the cube-like object the Holy Knight had left behind. Eli overheard that the Empire was forming a team to retrieve it. If they didn't return it to the Corin, it could lead to war between the two sides. The current three-way standoff was balanced by the three major powers. If our side wanted to fight the Corin, the one who would benefit most would be the Bellado. After Eli's insightful analysis, Luca, however, seemed uninterested. He just needed to follow orders and fight, in stark contrast to the cold machines. The visiting room was filled with flowers, plants, and sunlight. This was a place for new recruits to meet family and friends. Since Luca was an orphan, he never thought he would come here. Unexpectedly, today he had to meet a beautiful young woman. This was Cloud's sister. She had taken the initiative to arrange a meeting, contrary to Luca's worries that she wanted to investigate that horrific moment. Lucian Ramos reassured him, saying she had no hostile intentions. "From the moment my brother joined the guard force, our whole family had prepared for the worst that could happen. When he was alive, he mentioned Luca's talent a lot and often invited Lucian to come and meet him. With a beautiful, somewhat aloof face, she gently proposed fulfilling her brother's wish for the two of them to become a couple. Seeing Luca's confusion, Lucian frankly advised that in this matter, he would gain a lot of benefits, so much that even the wealthiest nobles would be envious. Just as Lucian said, the Ramos family's fortune was one of the largest in the entire empire. Marrying her would be like catching gold falling from the sky. However, his will immediately sobered up. He suspected that behind this, there must be some hidden secret, Suddenly, Lucian Ramos's face became stunned upon hearing Luca's refusal. Without letting her say anything more, Lucas said goodbye and turned to leave. He was telling himself, after this, the Ramos family will definitely feel humiliated. I hope I don't get into trouble. Just then, a hand grabbed him tightly. It was Lucian. She quickly apologized for being too hasty. If you haven't thought it through yet, then let's just be friends for now, okay? Putting aside the trouble that fell from the sky. Luca now wanted to meet with the combat instructor, Kia, to ask for private training. There were many strong people in the academy, but to him, Instructor Kia was the most special. He exclusively used civilian-grade, low-pressure parts in his fights to achieve victory. Compared to the new gear Luca had just replaced, his seemed far more sophisticated. If he didn't face him, he would stand no chance against a powerful opponent like a Koran knight. Immediately, the two engaged in a fiery battle. To deal with someone as skilled and experienced as the instructor, he chose a close-range tactic, closing the distance to unleash a series of melee attacks, as well as to take full advantage of the power from his suit. Seizing the right moment, Luca threw a powerful punch, seemingly unavoidable. Unexpectedly, with just a gentle parry, the instructor knocked Luca into the air. That move was so fast that he didn't even have time to process what just happened. Finally, after grabbing Luca's ankle, Instructor Kia threw him dozens of meters away, ending the sparring match. Without letting Luca get up, the instructor approached and scolded him for being too hasty with his attacks. Without properly assessing his opponent's capabilities, Luca remembered the moment his punch almost touched the instructor's chin. But the kinetic energy he unleashed was completely reflected back, causing his entire body to spin out of control. Instructor Kia explained it was a defense mechanism he had created. However, it also had a weakness. As he spoke, he held up his trembling hand, which was starting to bleed. It looked quite painful. A month had passed, and he shared with Eli that he trained with Instructor Kia every day. They practiced, but the instructor didn't teach any specific combat techniques. Instead, he wanted him to hone his observation skills and learn on his own. From that, Luca came to understand how to focus on specific skills by maximizing the skills he already possessed, which helped him use any type of weapon to create an effective combat method in just a few seconds. Speaking of the situation outside, Eli revealed that he had heard from his family about a group that was plotting a rebellion. Hearing this, Luca became furious, as this posed a huge threat to the Empire's safety. Dealing with the Koran was already difficult, and now they had to fight an internal force as well. Today, Instructor Kia took Luca to the residential area for people outside the city. It was very familiar to both of their circumstances. Having come from the slums, the place was full of gangs, and the air always carried a foul, unpleasant smell. He had no intention of returning to this filthy place, but he never expected to be brought here one day. As Luca followed Instructor Kia, he looked at the low-grade parts that the instructor had advised him to replace. Back at the academy, not knowing what the purpose was, the two entered a cellar located deep within the area. He thought it was abandoned, but there were two very unusual-looking guards. Just as Instructor Kia approached to make a request, when he wanted to see the manager, the two guards reacted fiercely. One drew a gun, wanting to finish them off. But how could common thug outsmart a royal guard? He was quickly subdued by Luca, forcing the other one to do as the master said. While waiting for the two to call their manager, the master introduced him to the hottest spot in the Empire, the Colosseum. Currently, they were sitting across from an extremely ferocious-looking manager. The master demanded that he give Luca a slot to participate in a fight in the arena. At first, the fat manager was arrogant, refusing and intending to eliminate them both right there. But when the master calmly mentioned the fate of the previous manager, it immediately made him turn pale with fear. The manager had to confirm one more time that after this, they would leave his arena in peace before he would agree. Standing behind, Luca was surprised by the sheer force of the master's presence. He had settled the matter without even lifting a finger. Before letting him enter the match, Master Kwa gave him information on his opponent. His body was abnormally huge, the result of excessive modification. Of course, this would shorten his lifespan, but in return, he gained immense strength. For Luca's downgraded parts, this was a huge challenge, requiring him to use everything he had to the fullest. Luca stepped into the arena, ignoring the taunts from the roaring crowd. They seemed completely frenzied, only hoping to see the most brutal violence to be satisfied. Facing that terrifying atmosphere, Luca actually felt excited, as it had been a long time since he'd felt this primal sensation. He recalled his time as a young orphan. Just like his peers, he was only given a tiny bag of dry rations, never enough to feel full. Despite this, Luca never stopped training hard, hoping to one day escape this wretched place. This annoyed the other children, who then started bullying him. In that fight, Luca emerged victorious, beating them to a pulp, and warning the others not to disturb his training. From then on, Luca understood the rules of this world. The strong eat their fill by taking food from the weak. At the age of 12, he passed the qualifying exam, making the list of outstanding candidates for the guard. During the time of training that followed, Luca seemed to have forgotten the painful memories of the orphanage, thinking he would never set foot in the slums ever again. Finally, his hulking opponent appeared, interrupting Luca's flashback. He looked incredibly fierce, with countless heavy accessories on his body. The fact that he could still bear it all made him a true monster. Facing him was the man named Gabriel, who cast a contemptuous look at the small young man before him, taunting Luca that if he obediently begged, he would take him as his attendant. Immediately, he took a stance and threw a full power punch as if to annihilate his opponent. Luca just stood there, calmly observing, knowing that if the blow landed, his bones would surely be crushed. Just as it was about to reach him, he quickly jumped back to dodge, while simultaneously landing a kick straight to his face. But it seemed to have no effect. Then, every blow he threw was a fatal one, chasing Luca relentlessly. Meanwhile, Luca tried to dodge while recalling what his master had taught him. Against a strong enemy, you don't just fight with strength. You must attack their weak points. Luca began using his robotic eye to analyze the trajectory of movement, as well as his opponent's characteristics. After a moment of observation, he finally saw an opening. He immediately ducked to dodge the attack, and, at the same time, kicked his face out of shape. Before Gabriel could recover from shock, Luca seized the opportunity, leaping into the air and wrapping his arms tightly around his neck, finishing with a throw that sent him flying out of the arena. Only then did the crowd fall silent, stunned by the unbelievable result. Luca had achieved a spectacular victory, without receiving a single scratch. Luca slowly walked out to where Master Kwa was waiting. He praised him for putting his lessons into practice so well. Then he offered him a credit chip, so he could pay the hospital fees for Gabriel, the man he had just defeated. Luca immediately objected, saying his goal wasn't to become a saint, especially not for those from the lower class. But Master Kwa calmly explained, "This is another lesson I want to pass on to you. The relationship between people. The kindness I want you to strive for isn't charity. Slowly accumulate and build relationships, and there will come a time when you will need them." Luca watched the master's back as he slowly walked away. He suddenly realized the purpose behind the master teaching him. It wasn't just because he saw his talent. One day, he would surely demand repayment for the investments he had made. However, he couldn't refuse the path the master was offering. Finally, in the treatment room, Gabriel was furious upon hearing the bad news from the doctor. His spine was severely damaged. He needed a new one to be able to support his massive frame, but it was far too expensive for him to afford. As he was stressing out, Luca opened the door and walked in, saying he was just dropping by. He even engaged in a war of words with him for a moment, repeating his earlier warning, that he would turn him into a cripple. Getting carried away, he suddenly remembered his master's words, and stopped provoking the other man. He then proactively handed the credit chip to the doctor, offering to pay in full for the latest model of spine. Hearing this, Gabriel was stunned, yelling and asking what Luca meant. When he heard the reason was just a whim, he mistook it for the victor's compassion. He was moved and promised that if Luca was ever in trouble, he would definitely help him, no matter the cost. As usual, Luca and Ailey continued their physical training sessions, but recently, the gap in their abilities had grown wider. After his 150th fall, Ailey had to ask for a break. He admitted that the method Master Kwa taught Luca was incredibly effective. Luca completely agreed. It felt as if all his previous experience had been distilled into a pure essence. At this point, Ailey was still nervously watching his expression. "You seem happier today, friend." He then asked him for a favor. His good mood didn't last long. Luca's face returned to its usual scowl, because the place Ailey had lured him to was the visiting area to meet the young Lady Lillian, the very person he had been trying to avoid. He didn't know what else to say and managed to choke out, "I'm sorry. It's just that the relationship between our two families is very good, so I couldn't refuse their request." Lillian, on the other hand, wondered why Luca hadn't responded to the many meeting requests she had sent. "Or is there something about me that displeases you?" Without holding back, Luca admitted, "I'm just an orphan. I'm not worthy of a noble lady like you. I spend almost all day training hard. Where would I find the time to date like you?" Ignoring the somewhat threatening persuasions from Julian, he coldly rejected the relationship and turned his back, leaving them all behind. At the Central Energy incinerator, Luca and his master were sitting in focused meditation. However, he couldn't concentrate as he recalled his deal with the boss of the underground arena. That day, both outside and inside the room, there were many armed guards equipped with guns to the teeth, while the two of them were unarmed. They would surely have been turned into beehives if a fight broke out. Hearing his question, the master answered, "If that situation had occurred, I would have calmly hidden under the table. The opportunity to attack would have been created by you, having been trained to have strong offensive instincts. I'm sure you've already simulated a scenario to subdue him on the spot, right? But if you did that, you'd be turned into a beehive right along with Nayla. Changing the boss in the slums is a common occurrence. It's not a difficult task. Your action would only create a pretext for Nayla's subordinates to kill him. That's all too simple for gangs like them. Of course, the moment you become the target of those guns, when you are in danger, I would subdue the gang in my own way. If you were injured, I would help you escape through a secret passage to ensure your safety." In the ancient tongue, Aten means demon's eyes, and it represents all that is terrible. Remember the Aten Motaira fighting method I taught you. It begins with utilizing all of your brain's resources and pushing them to their very limit to help it evolve along with the insight, to see through everything. Hearing this, Luca realized that the master's damaged nervous system was a side effect of using his brain to its absolute limit. This meant that if he equipped the Retian, he wouldn't be able to use the Aten combat technique in the normal way. Luca recalled that upon becoming a member of the guard, he would also be issued Retian gear. It was an advanced set of equipment, a collection of the Empire's cutting-edge technology, but no one could wear it continuously. Because it was a high-signal device, it required all of the brains, resources, and auxiliary computing devices to operate smoothly. In other words, when using the Retian, the brain has no resources left for Aten. At that point, it would be very difficult to control one's actions. He knew this, but he didn't tell me. What does that mean? He stated bitterly, "If I knew I couldn't use Aten with Retian, I never would have considered learning it. It's all because I was foolish and didn't realize that every piece of equipment has its limits." That statement was like a farewell, an affirmation that he would no longer learn his master's methods. Master Kwa only responded with a faint smile and said, "If you change your mind, you can come find me anytime." 3 months of training had passed. Luca was summoned to the office to see the company captain. He guessed Lord Hemelas hadn't appeared for a while, perhaps due to the coup d'etat that Eiley had mentioned. After some pleasantries, and expressing his satisfaction with Luca's current skill level, the captain began to mention that Luca frequently went to Master Kwa for extra training. Hearing this, Luca felt a little anxious, fearing that perhaps his superiors knew everything about him and his master going to the black market to participate in underground fights. But it seemed Captain Hercules knew even more than that. He asserted that the training had stopped. "I'm sure it was you who gave up first, not Kwa who chased you away. Because when you equip the Retian, you can't use the Aten fighting technique, right? This is something anyone could have guessed. So you think it's meaningless for someone who will become a guard and will have to deal with enemies on the battlefield in the future. I know that those who lack ability are eliminated by Kwa first, because he has no need for useless people. But those who are capable enough quickly realize they don't need to learn it, because those techniques are difficult to learn and difficult to apply in combat. That's the reason why, other than Kwa, no one else has mastered that fighting technique. However, I want you to maintain a close relationship with him. It will be necessary in the future. Therefore, continue to learn that technique. This is an order. Luca realized Captain Hercules was being cautious. He wanted Luca to stick close to Qua to monitor his every move. What secret is the master hiding after all? Returning to ask his master. To train him was easier than he expected. Today, the two of them continued to the black market and stopped at a toy store. The master decided to buy the entire stock of these toys for delivery this morning. This struck Luca as extremely strange. By late afternoon, all the goods had been delivered by the giant, Gabriel. He was furious with Luca for being forced to do this menial job. But what could he do? He had already made a promise, so he had to see it through. Luca saw how well he balanced his heavy body with a new spine. He told himself, I guess I didn't waste my money after all. At that moment, they were stopped at the orphanage where the master had grown up as a child. He called all the children out and distributed the toys he had just bought. From the looks of it, he seemed to visit frequently and donate a lot to this place. Suddenly, from a distance, two children were fighting over the last box. Luca was suddenly reminded of the rule that helped him survive in the orphanage. The stronger one gets everything. After all, not everyone gets what they want. In a fair way. As he listened to Master Qua reminisce about his childhood here, Luca realized he wasn't as self-serving as he had thought. From this perspective, Qua was just an ordinary veteran with a damaged nervous system, unable to withstand the overload. When using equipment to fight, his brain had serious problems, and the glorious aura of the soldier he once was had faded, with no light left. Perhaps that would be an image of himself in the distant future. Of course, if by then, he was still lucky enough to be alive after many brutal battles. Not letting Luca's thoughts wander any longer, Master Qua interrupted him. At that moment, his eyes filled with killing intent. He asked who on earth had sent Luca back here. Was it an order from the company commander? Facing the extremely tense situation, Luca lost his composure, not knowing what to do. If he spoke the truth, it would mean disobeying his captain's orders, disobeying the Empire. There was only one path left, to attack, to suddenly eliminate this old man, Qua. Just as he was about to make his move, the man suddenly lowered his tone, calmly advising him not to act rashly. If the two of them were to fight, he wasn't sure he could control himself and not kill Luca. The danger had passed. Luca could only say that he was a soldier of the Empire. Master Qua approached, putting a hand on his shoulder, and acknowledged it. I don't blame you. It's natural for a soldier to obey their superior's orders. You are the very model, the ideal soldier the Empire desires. Ever since you used the ballistic control technique, without a device, the higher-ups have been making preparations. Do you still think that you coming to me to get stronger was a coincidence? Faced with these words, Luca was utterly bewildered, suspecting the man was trying to manipulate him. It was all his own decision. There were no arrangements here at all. When Master Qua saw how tense he had become, he turned away, not forgetting to offer one last piece of advice. Everyone in the world is a slave to someone, whether they realize it or not. You are now trying to evade the truth. Go back, if you want to report this to Captain Hercules. Lucas stood there, as if haunted by what Master Qua had just said. However, voices in his head fought back. I want to continue studying at Accretion. Never doubt the Empire. After all, what I want is simply to succeed. Although he tried to reassure himself, deep down inside, Luca knew his faith was gradually dissolving into a sea of truth. Returning to the base, Luca still didn't know whether he should report to the company commander or not. If he reported it, he would definitely be taken for a psychological test. This was very dangerous when he was in such turmoil. After some thought, Luca decided to go see Ellie and ask him about it. Can the nobility manipulate the tests in the academy? Ellie affirmed that everyone knew about this, because not every noble child is talented enough to pass the exams fairly here. You could say this method is more of a skill than cheating. A few months before the exam, I completely immerse myself in the ideology of loyalty to the Empire, just like you. My true consciousness will be hidden deep inside. That way, I could pass the consciousness scanner without being detected. However, you must be careful. If the scanning process takes too long, you won't be able to distinguish who you really are. It sounded complicated. Luca decided to set it aside to learn more later. Today, the master and student returned to the slums, to a towering hotel. Since that day, Master Qua had treated him completely normally, as if nothing had happened. This very fact made Luca feel even more uncomfortable. He was led to the hotel's basement door. Today's exercise was to subdue all the criminals inside. After entering, Luca began to observe, evaluating each one of them, along with anything he could use, and an escape route in case things went wrong. Immediately after, without a word, Luca started the fight with a full-force uppercut, finishing off a big guy. Following that, using only basic techniques, he took down all of them within 2 minutes. Entering a dark room in the corner, Luca couldn't help but be surprised by the sight before him. A moment later, his master, Kwa, walked out, carrying an unconscious red-haired girl in his arms. Who knows what terrible things this girl had to endure? Although Luca knew that in this world, the strong prey on the weak, but for the crimes these bastards committed, it was truly unforgivable. From then on, he followed Master Kwa, dismantling countless criminal hideouts. The purpose of these fights was not to win. The most important thing was how to deal with overwhelming enemy forces in the most optimal way. Cut to a red-haired female mechanic, welcoming the master and student for a visit. She quickly went to pour coffee for the guests. Lucas seemed a bit hesitant, telling his master it wasn't necessary to come here. It turned out this girl was Judah, the one Luca had rescued on the first day. Master Kwa thought that seeing her so strong would make his student very proud. Indeed, it was very fortunate that after everything, her spirit remained incredibly strong. According to the introduction, Judah also came from an orphanage. She was very talented with mechanics and machinery, so Master Kwa sponsored her education. Suddenly, the giant Gabriel appeared again, running up to greet them. It turned out he had received a mission to protect Judah from criminals seeking revenge. Perhaps for this reason as well, the master, Kwa, decided not to go to the slums for a while. Hearing this, Luca felt a bit unsettled because he couldn't go out on his own to come here without the academy's permission. For now, that was a good thing. Returning to the academy, Luca reported everything to the company commander. He seemed perplexed by Master Kwa's decision. It was known that Master Kwa had been recruited right when the empire was being founded, despite his rebellious personality. At that time, the empire had to accept undesirable elements. The company commander confided that even he didn't fully understand the man, Kwa. When he was just a rookie, Kwa was already a core member of the guard, apparently undertaking secret missions. Luca hadn't expected that even the company commander couldn't access information about Master Kwa. Previously, he had sent many elite individuals, but only Luca had managed to last until now. You are very outstanding. To avoid any negative influence, I have arranged for a psychological evaluation. Be there on time. After the results of this test, there will be 2 possibilities. Luca will either be taken away to be brainwashed, or he will be accepted directly into the center of the honor guard. Of course, he wanted him to become the latter. He even wanted to adopt Luca as his son, to provide him with the best possible support. Hearing this, Luca was completely stunned. Even as he sat down at the testing machine, he couldn't stop thinking. The Custoria family was arguably the most prestigious in the empire. The testing robot beside him was setting up the scanner. It sensed that he was happy and became a little curious. However, he refused to answer and requested that she continue with her task. At the same time, Ellie was unleashing countless blows on a punching bag. He was training frantically to the point where his joints were completely worn out. He frequently had to apply more lubricant every time he rested. Meanwhile, Luca beside him thanked him for showing him how to pass the test safely. If you need anything, just say the word. I'll help in any way I can. Unexpectedly, Ellie's expression turned worried. It was true he wanted to ask for a favor, but he couldn't say it yet and secretly hoped it wouldn't come to that. Hearing this made Luca even more curious, but he also told himself there was no need to find out the truth. His only intention now was to become an adopted son of the Custoria family. The very next day, the company commander summoned all the rookies for a special mission to suppress a rebel faction that was rising against the empire. They consisted of 3 leading families, the main one being the House of Ramon. Isn't that the platinum blonde girl? Luca was stunned, unable to believe his ears. He then turned to Ellie, whose face was extremely tense, and gradually realized what he wanted his help with. The formation began to be established, arranged into each airship. Luca didn't expect to be appointed as a platoon leader, commanding guards from other classes. There were 27 of them in total, and Sergeant Kodrak was assigned as his assistant. Although he was a rookie, Luca decided to command them decisively, forcing everyone to act according to his every command. Anyone who disobeyed would be disciplined, with no exceptions. As soon as he finished speaking, Sergeant Kodrak immediately objected, wanting Luca to consult with him before issuing orders. Combat might be safer that way. Without saying a word, Luca clenched his fist and sent him flying 10 meters away. Was that action of yours you looking down on me? I may have come from the lower levels, but I'm the best in the entire academy. And next I will show you what the best platoon leader is like. Before starting the sweep, the company commander briefed them on the opponent's information again. Their base is in the old ruins of the Acid civilization, protected by a wall of steel. Under the dome, there is a high-force defensive shield covering it and turrets, considered a dangerous weapon. It will shoot down any aircraft that gets close. The number of turrets is 5. If Luca's armored brigade infiltrates the fortress and destroys the turrets, then the entire army will surround and advance. Luca knew the armored brigade was an elite unit, using state-issued combat armor. The Empire had invested a large force to carry out this suppression. The company commander announced, "The battle will commence at 14:10. That's in 1 hour and 30 minutes. All preparations must be completed. Now begin." Finally, Luca and Ellie had a brief moment to talk to each other. Before heading into battle, Luca had already guessed the reason for his friend's anxiety. It was the daughter of the Ramon house. Ellie had taken a liking to Lucien and was determined to protect her, no matter the cost. Faced with his friend's first love, Luca, despite advising him exhaustively, even threatening him, couldn't sway him. The best way was for Lucien to die in the chaos. Before Ellie could get there to rescue her, the battle officially began. The vanguard was sent out first. It was the full-body Mirrodin mech squad. Immediately, they all activated their firepower, launching a suicidal charge straight towards the enemy base to destroy the barrier. Thundering explosions erupted continuously, but it seemed tougher than expected. It even fired back countless pink energy beams, pushing back and destroying the mech squad. However, with overwhelming numbers and superior power, the barrier finally began to crack. The remaining forces pushed straight through to destroy the magic towers, engulfed in dust and smoke. The battlefield is a place of risk and tragedy, but at the same time, it's a place that pumps adrenaline into you. I'm also someone who finds joy and a sense of accomplishment. Right in this hell. If I didn't, I would have gone mad long ago. At the company commander's signal, all troops moved out, advancing into the enemy's fortress. The main plan was for the infantry platoons to enter simultaneously from all directions of the fortress. The command wanted to completely seal off all escape routes for the rebels. The underground of Accent Fortress had a maze-like structure with an explored depth of at least 100 meters, even though they previously had an underground map obtained from research. Luca's team, after getting past a barrage of enemy fire, finally infiltrated deep inside the base safely. He decided to lead from the front, ordering the entire team to follow closely and provide support. The main objective was to find Lucien and resolve everything. Surely, Ellie must have also made his way inside from another route, if he was determined to sacrifice the soldiers of his platoon to advance. He could probably break through the defense line here very quickly. I could also use my own troops to advance quickly, but I can't sacrifice loyal soldiers for my personal feelings. Therefore, I have no choice but to shoulder the danger myself. Luca continued to rush forward at full speed, activating all his senses to promptly disable the bomb traps. Along the way, leaving a brilliant afterimage like a destructive lightning bolt. My heart pounded harder. The sensation of my blood vessels dilating was clear. Blood was pumped relentlessly to deliver glucose to the brain. The pressure on my brain made me feel utterly exhilarated. Everything is so annoying. And the way the soldiers in this platoon are acting so sluggishly, I want to punch Kodrak right in the face. I only vaguely understood this before, but now I truly feel it. This is the reason why using acid combat techniques for a long time affects the nervous system. Finally, he reached the first command room. Luca didn't care how tough the door was. He was determined to ram it down. Finally, after an incredibly large explosion, Luca stood firm amidst the dust and smoke. The enemy soldiers began to panic. unleashing a barrage of artillery fire. However, against Luca's frenzied power, he annihilated them all in the blink of an eye. Kodrak ran over with the whole team. After witnessing this terrifying scene, they couldn't help but be terrified. It felt as if Luca had turned into a demon hunting its prey. The deeper they went, the more the space opened up. So those bastards set up their defensive position here. We've advanced quite deep into enemy territory. We should be able to find the fleeing nobles soon enough. Luca carefully controlled a robot, a scout drone, to fly in and check first. He saw that the force at the defensive line was about 100 strong. Behind them were the people, those without combat abilities, had therefore retreated to the rear for support. Lulian was probably among them. Our current pace of advance is too fast compared to the other squads. The vice captain, Kodrak, advised Luca, we should wait for the other teams for an all-out assault. Luca considered that to be quite right, especially since he couldn't think as quickly as usual after expending so much energy on the Achilles technique. Then, a sudden burst of gunfire erupted, catching his attention. It seems they're not aiming at us. There's a disturbance behind the enemy's front line. This means another squad has gotten past our team and is already inside fighting the enemy. If it's not me, it must be him. The enemy's firepower is now split between the front and the rear. This is our chance to advance. As he fought, Luca analyzed. They have too much firepower, so we need a solid defense first. A single mistake could lead to casualties. The enemy appears to have weapons with extremely high firepower. When they finish a volley and reload, that's our chance to attack. Seizing the opportunity, Luca immediately surged past his squad, rushing straight ahead, while giving an order. When they focus their fire on me, everyone seize the opportunity and attack. Luca tightened his grip on his gun, his cold gaze sweeping across the battlefield. The guns behind him weren't a threat. His armor was strong enough to withstand them. The priority was to eliminate the enemies in front, these rebels holding out in this ruined base. Their bullets can't penetrate our defensive armor. First, I have to destroy the high-damage weapons. Luca growled, urging his teammates forward. He charged ahead, dodging the flying debris, closing in on the group of enemies, taking cover behind an earthwork. Now that I'm close to them, they can't fire indiscriminately. Now you'll die by my hand. A soldier raised his hands, trembling. We surrender. Please stop. A teammate behind Luca confirmed. Yes, Captain. These are soldiers from Ilei's squad. Luca smirked, but his resolve didn't waver. So Ilei's squad did advance first and scattered the enemy. But the price was too high. They advanced too quickly without defending, leading to many teammates being severely wounded or killed. Luca thought to himself, furious at Ilei's recklessness. I don't understand why you would do this, Eilei Katika. Are you so desperate you'd sacrifice your own subordinates? You bastard. His heart was heavy, but the mission had to continue. This was a foolish decision, Luca, he muttered, between becoming a loyal soldier of the Empire and someone who always wants to help Eilei. If I have to choose one, I'll have to give up the other. This conflicting situation is so difficult. If I find Lulian Ramon now, I'll have to take her down immediately. That way, even if Eilei hates me for it, I can still help him from becoming a traitor, and thus I can save his life. Right now, that's my only option. Luca ordered Kodrak. Keep the prisoners here under control for now, then wait for the other squads to arrive and take them into custody. I'm leaving the situation here to you. Captain, you are an excellent soldier on the battlefield. Today's battle was not just admirable, but also astonishing. Luca waved his hand dismissively. If you're going to say things like that here, then don't bother. The soldier continued. But as an excellent commander, you still have a shortcoming. If not for my decisions, perhaps many more comrades would have fallen. Luca frowned. With such results, I think I did well. So what else do you have to add? You may be a skilled fighter, but that's only on an individual level. As for tactics, it seems they are not up to par. Your autocratic methods, always doing things your way, will prevent you from ever becoming an outstanding commander. Luca sighed. My methods are autocratic and individualistic because you all aren't strong enough. Even if I wanted to advance quickly and forcefully, none of you could keep up with my actions. I also hope you all can achieve merits and help me in this campaign, but you genuinely don't have the strength yet to do what I expect. As an individual, I don't want to just show off my strength and put you all in danger. That's why I need to make risky decisions, to give everyone a better chance. If you want to help me, the best way is to train hard. Once you have enough strength, then you'll get to prove yourselves on the battlefield. This is what I want most from all of you. Remember that. The soldier nodded. I'll remember what you've said, sir, but I will also remember your advice. In the future, if I make any mistakes, please don't hesitate to tell me. I will reflect on it and learn my lesson. Luca looked ahead, where smoke and fire still billowed. He stood proudly. Arrogant, he thought, but also flexible, able to adapt to any situation that arises. Good luck, sir. The walls were worn down by gunfire. Craters riddled the ground everywhere. Bodies lay scattered in many places. In this fierce battle, the pathways were barren and filled with the enemy's traps. But the scouts were still doing their job well, playing their role as they advanced deep into the residential area and wiped out the rebel scum. I have to admit, Ali is not just a good comrade, but also a friend. He's a true friend, with whom I can interact freely and comfortably. But now you're sacrificing soldiers for your own personal goals? What? These soldiers don't deserve to die like this. A wise commander is one who can distinguish right from wrong. They wouldn't let their soldiers take such risks. Even if you find Lulian now, how you plan to get her out? Lulian will surely die. I understand you're attached because you love her so much, but you don't have to die for her like this. Right now, you're just desperate and have lost control because of your own actions. Luca heard gunfire nearby. Suddenly, a figure rushed out from a ruined house, hands raised in surrender. I surrender. I'm a member of the Ramon clan. Luca narrowed his eyes. Whether you surrender or not has nothing to do with me. Where did Lulian Ramon go? The man trembled. I don't know where she is. Luca noticed deceit in his eyes. The man had glanced away for a moment. That's the act of a liar, Luca thought, drawing his gun. I've already surrendered. Spare me. Luca growled. This is your last chance. Tell me where Lulian Ramon is. Now, the man stammered, probably in the basement. How can that be? If you want to hide, you should move upwards. Or is there another escape route there? I don't know anything. A subordinate like me isn't privy to important details. Luca asked, then have you seen Ili Katika? The man suddenly became agitated. Don't mention him. He's the one who put me in this situation. Luca frowned, not understanding what he was talking about. That man is a maniac, even though we know each other, and I had already surrendered. He still did this to me. Luca lost his patience. Consider this a release for you. A quick death is less painful. Luca pulled the trigger. I've always hated the feeling of killing, but today I feel no regret or sympathy at all. This is what a bloody battlefield is like. He continued to move. The sounds of gunfire and screams grew closer. Ali, if you've reached the point of no return, what am I supposed to do with you? Luca felt a constant, nagging anxiety about Ali. What if he acts against the Empire? The time has come for me to make my choice. Suddenly, Ili appeared, his voice echoing amidst the rubble. Luca, so you've come. You finally dared to do something like this, daring to send the soldiers under your command to their deaths for personal reasons. Even Hugo Ramon, the head of the Ramon clan, and his trusted subordinates, and even Lulian are all here. For a common woman, you've really done all this? This time, I suppose you can't overlook what I've done, right? Draw your weapon, Luca. You need to be taught a proper lesson. This is a battle for survival. Luca gritted his teeth. Beyond my actions, I can't have any. Thoughts of mercy if I want to win. In battles like this, there are countless variables that are impossible to predict. However, I can estimate that in a short time. I can't take him down. In that case, the Ramon family will surely escape. Therefore, my calculation is that I need to take down the Ramon family first, even if that makes me Ili's mortal enemy. Even so, at least then, I'll have completed my mission. Ili frowned. Are you planning to ignore me and attack the Ramones? For me, predicting your line of attack is nothing special. But this was just his opening move. The real difficulty was yet to come. Luca decided. In this fight, I have to open my cybernetic signal bandwidth to full throttle. Only then will my speed reach its limit. That way, I can bypass Ili's interception directly and head for the Ramon family to kill them. He dashed off, leaving Ili behind. Stop. Now only Lulian is left. Ili will surely do everything to stop me. But it's too late. My movement speed has increased rapidly. He can't possibly stop me. Killing Lulian will be too simple. Luca approached Lulian, his eyes as cold as ice. Lulian, Ramon, the girl who approached me with her own motives. But it was just an approach with good intentions. But at this moment, The mission is still the priority. I'll make it quick, so she doesn't have to suffer anymore. That's all I can do for her right now. Suddenly, Eili appeared, blocking the path between Luca and Lulian. Luca only had time to see a bitter smile form on Lulian's lips before he was thrown back. A smile? The two struggled for a while before finally stopping talk. Luca said angrily, "You must have seen the look on her face. Her family was just killed, and she can smile?" Eili shook his head. "There's nothing strange about it. It means that finally, she's been freed from their grip. Her family always wanted her to enter a political marriage. That's all. She was just a tool for them to achieve their goals." Luca growled, "What are you talking about? Stop being so foolish. She's just another rebel." Eili retorted angrily, "Luca, you don't know anything. Their clan was branded as rebellious only because the higher-ups fabricated a story to purge them. If they truly wanted to rebel, wouldn't their defenses seem a bit too simple? If they wanted to oppose the Empire completely, they would have sought help from Korra or Bellato, instead of just having a few ordinary scouts like this. Fortunately, this is a battlefield, so it's easier to fake a disappearance or being killed in action." Eili's words hit Luca's mind like a powerful blow, causing fragmented memories to suddenly connect, pushing him to make a difficult decision. "He's not wrong," Luca exclaimed as a grim truth began to emerge. Infiltrating Axon Fortress should be impossible, yet these rebels did it too easily. And if this was a real uprising, why is the scale so small compared to the power of the three families? If they wanted to overthrow the Empire, why not seek support from powerful external forces like Korra or Bellato? Luca looked at Eili, his eyes filled with worry, realizing the imminent danger. "If this continues, both you and Lulian will die for nothing." Silence filled the space, leaving only the crackling of the fire. Then Julian spoke up, breaking the quiet. "My father wasn't entirely innocent either. He discovered the Axon artifact, but he hid it from the Empire." This revelation made Eili snap, protesting her words. "Julian, this isn't the time for that." Despite Eili's objection, Julian continued, explaining why her family was being hunted by the Empire. "Perhaps this is the reason the Empire targeted our family, accusing us of treason." She held out a glowing cube, a strange object that both of them had seen in their first battle. The Axon artifact, with its power, the legendary fortress that has been dormant for thousands of years, can be reactivated. Julian's explanation made Luca frown, a suspicion creeping into his mind. "Why are you telling me this?" Julian looked directly into Luca's eyes, her voice full of determination. "You still haven't killed me. Not because you feel guilty, but because you're afraid killing me would cause a conflict with Eili. Am I right? You also know that Eili can no longer return to a normal life in the Empire. Here, we have a choice. If we use this artifact, we can teleport inside the legendary fortress. That way, both Eili and I can escape the Empire safely. Help us." Julian's offer left Luca stunned. A bold idea formed in his mind. A teleportation device? Julian nodded, confirming the existence of a secret escape route. "That's right. Deep beneath the fortress, there's a teleportation device. Perhaps it was created as an escape route. In case the fortress was captured. You can kill me if you don't believe me. But I don't want to see Eili die protecting me. We can leave this Empire, and you can just say you never saw us." A smirk appeared on his lips. Luca was skeptical of the plan's simplicity. "You think the Imperial Army would just leave a device like that alone, Julian?" Julian countered Luca's skepticism with a crucial piece of information. "Only direct members of the Ramon family know about the existence of that tunnel. If we go deep underground, it'll be very safe." Silence enveloped Luca. He tried to analyze the situation, weighing the options before him. "I'm getting dragged into this. I don't care if Julian lives or dies, but I have to think about what's best for Eili." But Eili was never a good fit for the Empire. Sooner or later, he'd be eliminated. He looked around, assessing the chaotic battlefield. Luckily, this is a battlefield. It'll be easier to fake them as missing or killed in action. The decision was made. Luca rebooted the mechanisms in his body, preparing for his next move. "Eili," he said coldly, an undeniable command. "Promise me one thing." Eili looked up, confusion clear in his eyes, worried about Luca's decision. "If there's no teleportation device like Julian said, or if it doesn't work, you won't stop me again. Do you understand? Julian interjected, trying to protect Ellie. Ellie doesn't want you to be in danger either. All right, Ellie nodded, his voice choked, accepting Luca's condition. Okay, I promise, Luca. Luca carefully led the way, shouldering the responsibility of protecting the two of them, his heart heavy with thoughts. I must be crazy. Not only did I not stop Ellie, but I'm also escorting Julie and Ramon. If the suppression squad sees us, we're done for. Anxious thoughts swirled in Luca's mind as he tried to find a safe way out. The teleportation device, everything is so vague. Suddenly, Julian stopped. A small action, but it caught Luca's attention. She took a cloth and wiped the dirt from Ellie's face. It was a caring, loving gesture. The act made Luca uneasy, a sense of indescribable anxiety. Are you two planning to get married after you escape? Julian lowered her head, hiding her embarrassment, her voice apologetic. I'm sorry, Luca. I never expected things to turn out this way. Ellie took Julian's hand, giving her a warm look, comforting her from her worries. Don't worry about it. You're the one who taught me about the outside world. Luca sneered, mocking their affection. Is that the only reason? Ellie shook his head, denying Luca's narrow-minded thought. It's not just a normal reason. Because of her, my worldview changed. Thanks to her, I finally understood the source of my dissatisfaction and the chaos in my heart. Thanks to her. If not for her, I would have failed long ago. I'm not a freak. I'm just different. Hearing this, Luca realized Julian's profound influence on Ellie, an unbreakable bond. Julian influenced Ellie's nonconformist ideas. Those ideas are like a plague, spreading among people and eroding the empire from within. If those ideas are allowed to spread, the empire will collapse, or it will wither and be destroyed by the Bellato Federation or the Holy Korra Alliance. Attacked and destroyed. An iron resolve rose within Luca. I don't want to see the empire fall. If necessary, I will eliminate those seeds with my own hands, even if it's Ellie. He told himself, trying to convince himself of the righteousness of his actions. I'm not a dangerous element. I just want to protect the empire. Phew, we can finally relax. Like I said, only direct family members know about this tunnel. With a maze-like structure like this, it won't be easy to find. My father was once licensed to research the ruins, but he didn't report anything because he developed ambitions beyond his station when he discovered how to operate the fortress, which was meant to be under the Emperor's control. She paused, looking at Luca with a trusting gaze. More importantly, how much longer until we arrive? Luca asked, cutting her off as he looked ahead. Just a little further this way, and we'll be there. Julian bowed her head, expressing her gratitude to Luca. Thank you, Luca, for bringing us this far. Luca responded coldly to Julian's thanks, reminding her of the animosity between them. I'm just settling an old debt with Ellie. The next time we meet, I'll kill you and Ellie. Take care. A sad smile flickered across Julian's face as she accepted her cruel fate. If we escape successfully, I'm heading to Border City. If we get separated, let's meet there, Luca. If you also want to leave the Empire. Julian's pity annoyed Luca. He cut her off, not wanting to hear any more. I don't care about that. Luca clutched his head, feeling exhausted both physically and mentally. Deciding to help Ellie was probably a misjudgment, made while my mind was in turmoil. This is no time to rest. I need to think of how to report this after it's all over. Luckily, the captain has always thought highly of me. A glimmer of hope sparked in Luca's heart, relying on his superior's trust to get out of this difficult situation. Besides, a recon mission like this is something only I could do. Both Ellie and Julian are just an ordinary cadet and a noble lady. They're not important figures. He made a crucial decision, one that would completely change the situation. I won't go any deeper. Despite the worries and doubts, they continued into the darkness, where their fates will be decided. Lucas spoke coldly as a warning. Ellie, prepare yourself. If there's no teleportation device, then it all ends here. Luca's hand rested on the door latch, the tension suffocating. He simultaneously used his optical sensors to check for reactions inside. I need to find the source of this unease. The cause is definitely behind this door. Inside, it was pitch black, without a single glimmer of light. When the fortress is active, all the lighting systems should be on. Luca focused intently, shutting out his other senses, channeling all his attention into his sense of smell, trying to sniff out any sign of danger. First, the fresh, metallic scent of blood. Immediately after, the smell of oil and hot metal. There was no characteristic body odor of living creatures. The door swung open, casting light inside and shattering the darkness. And what Luca saw left him utterly shocked. In front of them was a squad of guards. 4 of them stood there, imposing as statues, their cold eyes ready to eliminate any intruder. Facing a single guard without combat armor is deadly enough, and there are 4 of them. Luca's heart sank, facing a situation beyond his control. The worst-case scenario is that the Imperial Guards don't kill Julian, but capture her alive. Julian isn't trained like Ellie and me. She wouldn't withstand torture and would confess everything. If that happens, our act of treason will be exposed. Despair welled up inside Luca. His meticulous plans had suddenly turned to smoke. I thought I could arrange it so the 2 of them could escape and live the life they wanted. Was it all just a sweet dream? At that moment, Luca had only one option left, a cruel but perhaps necessary decision: to kill Julian immediately. Even if I'm suspected, there's still a chance to convince my superiors. But if Julian dies, will Ellie be able to keep his composure? If he loses control and rushes the guards, everything's over. One of the guards turned his head, his sharp gaze stabbing straight at Luca, shattering his hesitation. We made eye contact. There's no more time. The more I hesitate, the more suspicious it looks. This is the last chance. In this precarious situation, when all hope seemed lost, a gunshot suddenly rang out, shattering the silence. It was aimed straight at Julian's head. Blood splattered from the wound, along with smoke rising from the barrel of Ellie's gun. Ellie had taken down Julian. A ruthless act, but perhaps necessary to save both their lives. Facing the guard's question, he explained coldly, "I've executed a prisoner who is no longer of value." During all that time, Luca was extremely tense, unable to utter a word. He could only watch as the 4 guards walked past him, gradually disappearing deep into the darkness. Not a single question. He looked back at Julian, who had fallen, motionless on the ground, forever without the chance to fulfill her dream. Luca returned to base and reported everything to the captain, recounting his carefully prepared story. The man praised him profusely, sparing no words in lauding Luca's achievements. An outstanding achievement. Squad 21 leader, Luca. It was recognition Luca had never wanted. "Thank you, sir." Captain Kodak always praised Luca, especially for his combat abilities, seeing him as a talented cadet. However, he believed building relationships with your subordinates is something you need to work on. If you need to learn how to manage subordinates, just go find Kwa and ask him. According to the report, you didn't execute Julian Ramon immediately, but took her to the lowest level. Did you have a particular reason for choosing Julian as a guide? The captain's question was like a sharp blade, stabbing straight at Luca's weak point. What I feared has come to pass, Luca thought, trying to remain calm. "Sir, Ellie and I plan to secure the teleportation device. Teleportation device. To prevent the rebels from escaping. We believe that capturing someone with combat abilities like Julian Ramon was the most logical choice to avoid casualties." The explanation sounded plausible, but the captain wasn't entirely convinced. A fairly reasonable assessment. "But Luca, I have one more question." "You must be referring to my relationship with Julian," Luca responded, probing his superior's intentions. "Not just that. Ellie also had contact with Julian Ramon." It was a clever admission, one that showed honesty, while implicitly asserting the innocence of them both. "Ellie and I are not the kind of foolish soldiers who would jeopardize a mission for such things. You, sir, should know that better than anyone." "Sir," Luca tried to persuade his superior. "I knew that they were not swayed by personal feelings, but always put the interests of the Empire first. To be honest, I partly wanted to give Lillian some hope. If she could complete the guiding mission, she might be allowed to live. We could only see. It is the only humane thing we could do for her." A somewhat insincere confession, but it could soothe my superior's suspicion. Facing the sharp gaze that seemed capable of finishing off any opponent, Luca told himself, "That's enough." The company commander was silent for a moment, then sighed, indicating his approval. "All right, you must be tired. We'll stop here for today." "With your permission, sir." After Luca left, the company commander was still not free of suspicion. He muttered, analyzing the situation. for LA's squad to be wiped out so cleanly. It seems House Ramon is more capable than I thought. Hearing this, Luca's face darkened, feeling an invisible pressure weighing on his shoulders. He calmed himself, trying to stay composed. I need to stay calm. It was all written in the report. LA's squad was ambushed by the rebels. In their zealous pursuit, the entire squad was annihilated. But anxious thoughts kept invading his mind. But why does he seem to be testing me? If I show any weakness, I'll break into a cold sweat. After thinking for a moment, Luca turned back and answered confidently. If it were my squad, I wouldn't let that happen, promising that there would be no mistakes. Under his command. Hearing that, the company commander took a delighted sip of his coffee. A mysterious smile appeared on his lips. This will be something to look forward to. Sitting on the high-speed train back, Luca dozed off, exhausted from the continuous stressful days. I need some rest. His mind was still haunted by what had happened. He couldn't forget Ellie, Lillian, Fortress Axon, the artifact, the space teleportation device. But death had prevented her from escaping the Empire. And that death came at the hands of the one she thought was a knight, Ellie. It was a bitter truth that Luca couldn't accept. I can't look Ellie in the face. It must be because I was there that he killed Lillian. If I hadn't been there, he would surely have faced the end with her. Anyway, my goal has been achieved, Luca told himself, trying to find a reason to console himself. Exactly. That's enough. Upon arriving in the capital, Abisan, Luca, and Ellie were given rest and equipment maintenance, preparing for their next missions. They also received medals of merit for their contributions in the battle. The 7th class Cross Sword Medal is an honor for those who have made great contributions to the Empire, but only Luca and Ellie received this medal among all the guard cadets, a recognition of their talent. And yet, I received a medal. How ridiculous, Ellie said bitterly, mocking himself, as soon as Luca returned. Ellie spoke a reproach filled with disappointment. I thought you would fight the guards at all costs. It was a hope that Luca could not fulfill. I would have if I were alone, Luca replied, trying to explain his choice. Although my family is quite close to the Ramon family, they were still very happy that I had distinguished myself. The cruel irony was that his family supported the elimination of his friends. Ellie shook his head, disagreeing with Luca's choice. Quit being a cadet. You're not cut out to be a guard. Just for that so-called love, you murder comrade. He had killed a comrade just for personal feelings. Ellie's pain and indignation were packed into every word. I wish I could. If only I could quit, Luca replied helplessly. My family will get me into the guard corps by any means. They might as well kill me. Watch your mouth. Ellie, Luca warned, not wanting Ellie to get into trouble. Cough this sharp pain. My internal organs might be damaged. Ellie clutched his stomach, grimacing, enduring both physical and mental pain. This time returning is the first time I've felt disgusted with what I've done in the past and what I'm doing now. I could only remain silent. Ellie was not a cold-blooded murderer. He must be facing the guilt of killing his comrade. The upcoming period was a vacation, and Ellie announced he would stay home for another 3 months. Before leaving, he revealed that Lillian had been raised like a machine for political purposes. The arranged marriage was also for that purpose. So that's why she smiled through her suffering. When she saw her family gone, Luca suddenly realized her approaching me wasn't out of admiration either. Ellie immediately agreed. Publicly, it was because the company commander had ordered House Ramon to do it. Along with him adopting me as his son, it's possible the two leading families are politically involved with each other. What is the real purpose? To find out the truth, Luca followed his orders and went to train in Krisha. At the meeting point, he met an instructor from the Castoria family. The aircraft had just landed. It was a cold-looking girl with beautiful black hair who told him to get in. Luca had just introduced his name when she cut him off, saying she had already investigated everything. Her arrogant attitude, plus her not entirely mechanical body, proved she was a noble who had lived in the lap of luxury. Then Luca tried to get more information about her and the place he was about to study. However, her uncooperative attitude made Luca angry. He boldly asserted that she was the company commander's daughter and also his main instructor for this trip. Hearing that, she was surprised, as if she'd been caught. She confirmed she was Jason Castoria, but told him not to act like a know-it-all. The two remained tense throughout the trip, unable to cool down. Finally, the aircraft landed. Luca followed Jason, observing the vast scenery around them. In front of them was a giant statue. The plaque read Dino Kratia, the founder of the academy. From a distance, the whole scene was magnificent and luxurious, proving that not just anyone was rich enough to enroll here. As soon as he entered the school, Luca was greeted by a boy running up to him. It was Felix, a classmate who had trained with him before. He didn't seem surprised, revealing that the rumor about the company commander's great favor towards Luca had spread throughout the academy. He even boldly asserted, "He wants to set you up with Lady J-san," something every aristocratic boy dreamed of. However, remembering that bitch's annoying face made Luca shudder. "Actually, I don't need to become the son-in-law of the Castoria family. As long as he keeps his promise to adopt me, that's enough." Afterward, Lady J-san continued to lead him to his dorm room. On the way, she shared some information about the place. In particular, he needed to be wary of a very dangerous person everyone should avoid. She was the dorm manager at the academy. Just then, a bell rang, cutting off Luca's question. The person just mentioned had come to find him. Unexpectedly, she had a very cute, lowly-like appearance. She introduced herself as Barbara and wanted to give Luca a tour of the dorm. Although very suspicious, he was willing, as the more information he had, the more useful it would be. Later on, with just a glance, Luca noticed her clothes seemed old, indicating she was from a lower class like him. Perhaps that's why Jason dislikes her and advised me to stay away. Looking at her friendly attitude and clean hair, as if she had been thoroughly washed before coming here, it was hard to believe this girl was dangerous. At the academy's main building, Jason still had a displeased look on her face when she met Luca in the hall. He didn't feel comfortable either when ordered to study with her for the first week. Just then, Barbara appeared, shyly greeting Jason, whom she hadn't seen in a long time. Unexpectedly, Jason reacted very violently, walking straight up to threaten her, telling her to get lost like a mortal enemy. Luca was very curious about the drama between these two girls, also because the theoretical classes, without any practical combat, made him too bored. If this continues, my combat senses will soon get rusty. Just then, a baby-faced student came looking for a fight, asking about the relationship between him and Lady Jason. He even lunged as if he wanted to eat his love rival alive. Just in time, Luca swung his arm and easily subdued him. As he was about to strike, he suddenly stopped, chiding himself. To think I'd want to lay a hand on such a small fry. In the end, the kid knew his mistake and sat obediently like a puppy, agreeing to answer everything about Jason and Barbara's relationship. There's a rumor that Barbara was cursed by the garbage delivering witch, because those close to her all get caught up in incidents of rampaging androids. In reality, they rarely go out of control. That's why everyone shuns her and pushed the thankless job of dorm manager onto her. Just then, a scuffle broke out nearby, catching Luca's attention. It was Barbara being drenched with water from head to toe. The perpetrators were none other than the rich young ladies, laughing ha, ha, as if it were a daily occurrence. Already annoyed from the lack of action, and now faced with this eyesore, Lucas stepped in to help, shaming them into running off to tattle to their parents. Having been helped by a handsome guy, Barbara brightened up and thanked him profusely. Luca also hoped this was enough to get close enough to be attacked by the androids. Now, he didn't expect trouble to find him so soon. The very next morning, Luca was summoned to the headmaster's office for pulling a knife on a fellow student. It seemed the power of those young ladies was greater than he thought. However, the headmaster before him was an understanding person. Not only did he not blame him, but he also earnestly advised him, never mess with them again. They are more terrifying than wolves. If their families really decide to act, no one can intervene. Luca didn't know what else to say and could only ask for leave to depart. But inside, he was very excited. Bring on this damn curse. That evening, Luca snuck out, intending to find a spacious place to stretch his legs. Suddenly, a group of delinquent students on machines jumped out to block his way. It turned out they wanted revenge for their girlfriend whom he had taught a lesson the day before. As expected, despite his best efforts, the leader couldn't even touch a single hair on Luca, not one strand. In the middle of the heated fight, an android suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Squawk! Its red eyes glared at everyone. Suddenly, it went berserk, instantly finishing off an unlucky fellow. Immediately, witnessing this, Luca was completely surprised, caught off guard. Not stopping, the android continued to charge, intending to take the life of a leader who had just dueled with Luca, terrifying him. It was immediately kicked squarely in the face by Luca and sent flying. He walked straight towards the monster, wanting to unveil the Academy's curse and clear that girl, Barbara's name. While fighting, Luca observed and saw that this robot was indeed running a super perfect program, which made him very interested. It used all sorts of attack techniques without using its engine. Finding it a tough opponent, the android quickly tried to escape. Luca was about to capture it for research when he was detected by the school's radar, which ordered him to return for a debriefing. The very next morning, Jae-sun rushed over, scolding Luca for not listening to her. You just had to get involved with that Barbara girl, and now you're in trouble again. However, with his keen eyes and a series of analyses, he had figured out that she was the one pulling the strings from behind, ordering those young ladies to bully Barbara. What's your motive? As if shot through the heart, Jae-sun was speechless. She didn't argue anymore, but he was still suspicious. Why was she crying? I saw fear in her eyes. Perhaps I need to investigate Barbara further on this matter. Today, she brought a box of cookies to thank Luca. Taking the opportunity, he tried to talk to her to get more information. After applying a series of psychological manipulation techniques, she couldn't take it anymore. Unexpectedly, she revealed her true face, aiming a sharp gaze at Luca, threatening, "What reason do I have to tell you everything?" That's it for the episode for now. Gal hopes to receive many likes and shares as motivation to make more special series.